Alright, hello everybody. Welcome to this video on the Ultimate Guide to Guardian Tale Seasonal Achievements. I'm Hyrule's Guardian, and it's been a while since I posted, but with these seasonal achievements only having a little under a month left before they're done, thought I should probably get out some sort of thing to help everybody. Luckily I was able to achieve the 3,300 points to get the Deluxe Frame, so hopefully I can give some pointers for people to figure some stuff out. Alright, so what is the purpose of this guide? So it's not like those typical guides that a lot of people have been posting, where you'll see how to do like certain individual achievements, because there's already a lot of those out there. I could make some in the future, but for now what I really want to do today is to help people decide how much they're able to achieve, then try to like set out a plan of how they're going to achieve that. And then at the end I'll give some advice towards specific achievements in case you're having trouble with any of those. And hopefully by the end you'll go from looking like Hannah here to looking like Claude. And actually the reason I put both of them here as well, besides just saying that, is you're going to need these two if you're going to want to achieve a lot of these challenges. Alright, so what kind of contents are there in these achievements? So I was able to kind of section them off into different categories. You got 9 of them under Camazone, so that's going to be the biggest section. Then you got a tie between Expedition and Tower modes, with the towers all being defeating bosses with certain heroes. And Expeditions, it's a mixture of doing it with rare heroes and doing it with whatever team you want, but lower Mystic Resistance. And there's that one extra boss one. For the arcade, we've got Lana's Pizza Delivery, which seems to be mixed opinion on. I personally didn't think it was all that bad, but I've heard a lot of other people find it pretty tough. Mirror Rift, there's 3 of those. Co-op, there's 2 options. For challenges, there's 2 extra challenges based on the side stories. Under Other, I've listed 2 that are basically freebies. And under Impossible, I've got the 45,000 stamina challenge. So, yeah, you're probably not going to be getting that one. So let's not even consider that as one of the 36. There's only 35 options, basically. Alright. So the main purpose of this guide is to help you decide what you're going to be able to achieve. So I've kind of made a general idea of what I think these challenges are. First, I split them by how much effort they take to beat, which, as you can see here, we have simple, easy-ish, mid, hard, brutal, and impossible. Of these, even the one that says easy-ish, realize that it doesn't mean it's actually going to be easy. It's still pretty tough because these are seasonal achievements, but relative to the others, it's fairly easy. Alright, so under these, I also listed the different awards you can get. So if you're able to do the simple ones, you can get Frame 1, because there's 5 of them, you only need 500 points. Under the easy-ish, you can get to the LP costume. Well, actually, I don't know if that's accurate. I think it's 1,100 points. I'll have to double check that. But under mid, we got Weapon Skin. Under hard, you can get the trophy. And then brutals for the frame. The second list I put is where your account level is. Now, if you're even competing for seasonal achievements, you have to have beaten World 14. It doesn't unlock until then. So I assume you've at least gotten an okay account. By those standards, every should at least be in the category I label as normal. Normal is you've got a good enough account, you've been able to beat World 14. That's where you could potentially achieve. A high account is you're a little bit above that. You've probably got, let's say, around a year into the game at least. The next one is just a special category I made. It's for that District Area 3 with 2-star heroes. You're either going to need to be fairly skilled, or either have some investment in the game or been in it for quite a while, like one of the beginning people, or you just really like 2 stars and you happen to have a bunch of them leveled up, in which case, maybe you can get this achievement a lot easier than I did. Then we got the Dolphins / Longtime Players, which is probably the category I'm more in. And then on the top I put Whale of Whales, and that's the people who are willing just to throw tons of resources at this game and they can beat what I do a lot easier. And when you look at these 2 charts, rate yourself honestly. First off, on your effort level, how hard are you willing to try to get these achievements? Pick that one first. And then think of your account and pick that one. And between the 2, whichever one is lower is what you should be aiming for in my mind. So for example, if you were willing to put in a mid-level of effort, but you had a high-level account, you could potentially earn the trophy and have Little Princess join your farm. But since you're not willing to put in that much effort, you should aim for the weapon skin, because that's going to be a lot easier for you to do at your place. So that would be your option would be the weapon skin. In my case, these are where I would rank myself. I'm kind of in the middle of those two dolphin areas. But I'm willing to kind of be crazy and really work towards getting that frame number 2, the Deluxe Frame. And just to give you an idea of how long it took me, though, with my account, it took over 120 hours to earn the achievements. And yes, I did. I made a spreadsheet. I calculated it out. And I took out time for like arena and other content that was outside of the achievements. So yeah, it took me over 5 days of actually playing. So yeah, you better be willing to work pretty hard if you're going to aim for that highest frame. Luckily, though, it's not as bad as it seems. The distribution is quite a wide range. For me, the third trial with all rare heroes took me over 30 hours to complete alone. So that already knocks out a quarter of the time I spent if you don't do that one. So yeah, that's just an idea for you. And besides that, I've got a little bit more of an overview for you. Here's how I classified them. You may or may not agree with me. It's fine if you don't. I know probably the biggest controversy one will be the Expedition Boss 400k with no skill, no chain skill. I put that as a very high one, but if somebody focuses more on raid content and has a really good raid team, then they probably won't actually find this one all that difficult. Whereas for me, being more of an arena player and more of a completionist, but not so much focused on raid, I just didn't find this one overly feasible. I might be able to do it if I really worked at it, and I'll see if I can do it in the next couple weeks before the challenges go away, but it was one of the ones I chose to skip. But yeah, so here's kind of the lists for you. And then after this, I'm going to break it down into the different sections. My advice is you watch all the sections up until the one of your level of completion, and then go from there. And for some of them, I even have some advice on things to test to see if you're even able to achieve them. But yeah, let's get started with the first category, Frame 1, which has a nice blue border like this slide does. It's only 500 points to achieve. The first 200, everybody can earn very easily, unless you just barely switched into the Chapter 14 and just unlocked them. Then I'm assuming you've probably been working enough at it that the 10,000 coffee is not too hard to get if you haven't already gotten it. For Faint Tactics, there's 9 turns. Just watch the guide. It's very easy. So those 2 are freebies. If, for whatever reason, you're actually not in that category, I call it the normal category, you beat World 14 and you honestly have no idea how you did, and you don't think you should be in that category, you can get your last 300 points just from Lana's Pizza Delivery. It's not easy, but it's not that bad, and it literally requires no team building or anything because it's just an arcade game. Otherwise, if you don't want to deal with that, or you only want to do like one of the points, then for your rest of your points, you can either do some Camazone, which has a ton of different ways to get points, or maybe Fire Tower Horizons, or possibly even one of those co-op achievements. Although the 2 A ranks or higher is the easy one, the one of getting all 3 different awards is a lot harder to do, so don't really aim for that one too much. Next, we got the Little Princess costume, and I do have to double check this, but I do believe it is only 1,100 points to get. It does take quite a bit of work, though. I personally still advise Lana's Pizza, get those 300 points, because why wouldn't you? But if you really don't like it, there's other options. 2 freebies for sure, though, so that's 200 points offhand. You can do a lot of Camazone ones between, I'd say, 400 to 600, depending on your account level. But as long as you're in that normal category, you should be able to at least get 400 points off of that. Fire Tower Horizons ones, I don't know why, but they're just really easy. The dark ones are a little bit of a challenge, but the fire ones are super simple. So another 200 points right there. And the co-op, the 2 A ranks is pretty nice. So if you were to do all of those, then that should leave you in a good range to get the Little Princess costume. There's a couple other options, and we'll go over some more in the next section as well, and you might be able to snag some of those and if you need them, but those are the main ones I would suggest to get the Little Princess costume. If you also want the Toy Liberator to go with your Little Princess costume, you're going to need 1,700 points. This one will take some real work. This one's definitely not easy to get. And if you don't have a high-level account, you probably don't really want to try for this one because it's going to be too difficult to do. But if you do have a high-level account, then similar to before, do the Camazone, maybe skip the trio benefit, and maybe skip the floor 20 if you happen to get bad RNG and you just can't get there. Then don't worry about those. But the trio benefit really is the tough one, so probably skip that one. But if you do the rest, you can get between 600 and 900 points, I'd say. 200 for the freebies, you're up to 1100 already. A grade times 2, there's another 100. Fire Tower of Horizons, pretty simple. Dark Tower of Horizon, floor 40 is actually also not that bad. 50 is bad, but 40 is not too bad. Beth's Challenge, I believe Heavenhold Tower 70. It's pretty reasonable. The Judgment Day on Rare isn't really that bad. It's just very tedious. It'll take you a lot of time. I'll get into that later, but if you have put this as EX weapon on any hero who can use it, it is definitely doable. It just will take you 20, 30 minutes to play through. So it's obnoxious, but you can get it. 100 points. Lana's Pizza, 300 points. And with that should be enough to get you in the right range. But if you really don't like Lana's Pizza, a couple other options for you. You could do the Roy the Red Challenge. That one's a little bit annoying as well, because you can't get hit once. But once you get down the pattern, you can get it within a couple of dozen tries. Bari's Challenge isn't too hard either. It definitely will take some practice and getting used to the pattern, but it's not that bad. And then I really don't advise doing the arena for this phase. If you want to, go for it, but hers is really rough. You gotta get a little bit lucky on top of being really skilled, but if you really want to avoid some other ones on here, go for that. And if you really can't do certain ones of these or just don't want to put the time in, and you have a really good account, you might be able to do some of the Mirror Rift ones. And if that's the case, you're in that boat, then go ahead and do that. But with that Toy Liberator, there's enough flexibility that hopefully you can be able to get this one. The trophy. We're now starting to run into the really tough territory. For this one, you need 2,500 points, which is quite a few. It means you can only skip 11 choices. But if you follow all the ones I have in the last slide, you should have about 2,000-ish points. One of the ones I really don't suggest doing, even though I did it earlier in my run, but it took me 30 plus hours, like I mentioned, is the third trial area with rares. Please avoid that one if you don't have a lot of rares built. It will save you a lot of headache. At this point, if you're aiming for this one, you probably will hopefully have a good enough team to go for the trio benefits, so that's an option. Also, make sure you have Hannah. She will make your life so much easier, especially with the 3-hero challenge. Just her undying ability is really powerful. Getting all 3 awards in co-op is tough, but if you have friends who play with you and you can have them choose characters who don't have heals on or something, then you can maybe get this a little easier. If not, it is still possible. I'll get into that later. And once again, I mentioned this before, but the mirror rifts are an option to throw in here as well. But overall, this should get you to about 2,500 points. And now we get to the real goal for if you want to complete everything. But please, if you cannot do this one, don't stress it. It hopefully won't be that big a deal. Hopefully they'll have another frame in the future that will be just as cool. But yeah, this one you can only skip 3 total challenges. So that's what we're going to be covering here in a second. My first piece of advice, though, if you're even considering going for the Deluxe Frame, then make sure you're able to beat Expedition Stage 8 with under 1,500 Mystic Resistance. If you can't do that, you probably will not be able to achieve the Deluxe Frame, because that one will get you 3 sets of achievements in one go, because there's 3 different ones, under 1,500, under 1,532, and under 1,564, or something like that. And they're not all that different from each other. I think it's like ranging between 40 and 50% decrease attack and defense for your party. So if you're not able to do the 1,500 one, it's not overly likely that you'll be able to do either of the other ones. So it's pretty much an all or nothing in my mind. Yes, in theory, if you're only off by one thing and you're able to do one of the other ones, then go for it. But in general, I'd say if you can't do all 3, though, you're probably not going to be able to get the Deluxe Frame. So do that first. After that, you pick whichever 3 you do not want to do. The first one is picked for you, and that's the 45,000 stamina. Unless you're literally made out of money, then you're not going to get this one. It's just not going to happen. For the last 2, one of the ones I would personally recommend is the Expedition Boss with 400k points without using chain skills. That's a really tough one unless you have a lot of built raid units. So if you're in that boat, earn it, go for it. But if not, I recommend that as your second choice. And your last one, it's up to you. For me, I picked the Light Mirror Rift because I didn't have a good unit to use for it. But if you're able to do that one, and the other ones as well, then maybe you can just skip one of the annoying ones, like the third trial area with rare units, or maybe even one of the challenge stages, like arenas, or possibly one of the other ones, whichever one you just don't want to do. All right, so that gets us through all the different classifications I would put for what you can earn. Now let's just go through general tips for different ones. Starting with Camo Zone, because that's the biggest one. So probably if you're going for anything other than the base frame, you'll probably need to do some Camo Zone. First off, I just got to ask, why are there so many of these things? Like, they put a whole entire 9. That's a whole quarter of all of the achievements are based in just Camo Zone. Whatever the reason, the devs like Camo Zone, so it's there. Obviously, at the base, reach these stages. Hopefully that should be pretty self-explanatory. The curses ones aren't that bad. I'm not sure with the current season. I haven't actually looked at it too much. It just switched to the Dragon Hunter Returns version. But in the previous one, the Noir season, it was actually really nice because there were the omnipotent containers that made curses better for you, gave you more benefit. But even with one before that, which I can't even remember which one that was at this point, but the one before it, though, it similarly was not that tough with the curses. Curses, as long as you get the penance benefit, they're actually almost more good for you than they are bad. So use those, get them done. Silver coins is the only one that you cannot overlap with some of the other ones. I would suggest going for the silver coins last. Definitely don't overlap with the curses, because if you get like the whaling, not the whaling box, I think it's the mimic box that takes away coins, you're going to be making your life a lot harder. So do the silver coins on a completely separate run from everything else. But that one, it's really not terrible. It just takes a good amount of luck and work. But if you work at it enough, you should be able to get it. My advice, wait until you get a Tree of Wealth early on, maybe 2 of them, and then just spend as many coins as you can in the shop. Even buy things and then buy things to override them, just so you can spend as many coins as possible. Oh, and one note, please don't think it did not give you the achievement if it doesn't show up right away. I noticed on mine, it gave me the first one, the 1200 coin one, but then it didn't give me the 1500 one when I broke that number, and I was really confused why I did not do so. But then when I went back and I ended my challenge, all of a sudden it gave me the achievement. So first off, keep count and don't stop 1500. Even try to go as far as you can. Hit 1800 if you can. But at the end, if you literally get stuck where you can't get any further in Camo Zone and you think you passed the number and you really cannot move forward, just finish the challenge and see if it gets you the achievement. If not, then I don't know. Sorry. But yeah, for me, it really worried me, but it was not actually there. All right. Trio benefit, that's going to be your hardest achievement to do. It can be done simultaneously with certain other ones. Personally, I don't see why you wouldn't do it with the curse one, because like the curses really are a benefit more than a disadvantage, as long as you pick the right curses. So I did the curse run and the trio run in the same run, and I was able to actually finish 20 floors. So it's definitely tough, and it requires a lot of repeating of stages, especially the boss stages. I've had cases where I've had to like repeat it up to like 40, 50 times, which is not ideal, to say the least, but it can be done. So just repeat it, change up your positions, change up who's the leader, see if things help. Hopefully you'll make it through. If you're really on a bad run, restart. It'll take time, but it's not all that challenging as far as you don't need to be super skilled to get it. It just takes good team building and a lot of playing. All right, and my final general advice for any of these Camo Zone achievements is get Hannah. I did not use Hannah before, but when I saw that every team that was completing these challenges was using her, pretty much, I started using her. I realized that her Undying ability is super powerful, because as you get to tougher stages, most characters get killed in 1 or 2 hits, whereas for her, she can survive for several seconds just because she literally is unable to die on her first death. So she makes life a lot better, especially with that trio benefit. Also, on occasion, you might want to switch her to being your leader. I've noticed that certain bosses, like the Martial Art Master and the Archdemon, they like to target your party's leader, especially though the martial arts guy, he will teleport right behind them and hit them. So if you make your leader somebody other than Hannah, they'll most likely die in one shot. So if you make Hannah the leader instead, it might help your odds of winning that round. And my final piece of advice, which I should have taken long ago. Anybody who's looked at my videos, you'll notice that I'm a melee player, because melee characters are pretty good in an arena. And I just like melee style in general. But play range for Camazone, it is so objectively better. There's not even a question. I played melee for so long on it, and when I finally decided to switch to the range team to try to get some of these achievements, I realized how easy Camazone is relative to what I thought it was before. I thought it was so hard. It's still not easy, don't get me wrong, but compared to playing with melee, you're just giving yourself a handicap that is against you, so you should not do so. Alright, that's enough of Camazone. Sorry for the rant on that. Expedition. This here is for those this is not for the faint of heart. This is for people who are going to be trying to earn some of these higher awards, particularly the trophy and the deluxe frame. So keep that in mind before you try to do these. For the rare hero ones, some of you might be able to do that with not as built of accounts if you invested in rare heroes. I don't like investing in rare heroes. It might actually pay off in the future if they give more people like Craig and Elvira their ascended forms. But until they do so, I just don't think it's really all that worthwhile to invest in a lot of 2-star heroes. So for me personally, I only invested in Coco, and then I put Dolph in the training room. Coco really was my carry for the 2-star challenges. You might be able to do it with only Coco. I've seen some people do that. But more or less, these are going to be tough achievements, though. The first two are tough, but not impossible. The third one really is terrible. So please avoid that third one unless you absolutely have to do it. That one took me 30 hours. It was so bad. The rest, it's up to you. As for the other ones, the Mystic Resistance down levels, you need Claude. There's no way around it. Claude is like the best PvE character, I think, in the game right now, especially for content like Expedition. As great as Camille is, and he's better for PvP, Claude is needed for PvE. Claude's area of attack with his special move is so good that you have to use him if you want to beat this mode. For me, I had his character already, but I did not have his weapon, and I almost never use my mileage, but I used the mileage to get his weapon because I was like, I'm not going to be able to beat this challenge unless I use him. So did that, put his weapon in the training room, so it was maxed out, and I was able to do it. So yeah, if somebody beats this level without Claude, feel free to comment down below. You deserve some street cred for that, but no, Claude is needed for this mode for pretty much anybody. And then finally, for the boss with 400k, if you're good at raid and you have really well-built raid teams, you probably can take this one on. So my ranking might be inaccurate for your case, but for players who are more like me, who don't invest as much in raid, then this was going to be a pretty tough one. So my advice, test it out, see how close you can get, maybe watch a guide on it, but if you're not getting that close to it, then maybe make this one of your skipped achievements. Towers. We got 7 tower achievements. We got 3 of them in the regular Heavenhold Tower, and then 2 in the Fire and Dark Tower of Heavenhold, respectively. For the Fire one, those are actually the easiest. I really don't know why. Like, I'll say the Tower of Horizon kind of got downplayed. Back in the day, I used to play it quite a bit when it first came out because it was only one section would be open for a month, and then it would go away, and you get the next element. So I thought you'd have to beat them in those short time frames. But eventually they opened them all, and then it kind of became less exciting to do it, so I just kind of put it to the sidelines. So when I came back, I think I was on floor 25 of the Fire Tower of Horizons. I was like, oh, I wonder if those are going to be tough, because I remember this being pretty hard content. But then I got through it like really easy. It was not that hard at all. So obviously, depending on your account, it might still be tough for you, but if you got a pretty old account that's got decent units, it's not that hard to do. And I never really invested in Fire, to be honest. So I only really had Mia and Lena as my 2 Fire units, but they're more than enough to beat these challenges. I'm pretty sure I beat the first one on my second try for floor 40 because I just had the wrong equipment on Mia. And the second one I did with Lena one time and I beat it, so it's not that bad. I think you all should be able to do that if you are aiming for that. Dark Tower of Horizon, floor 40 is not too tough, and I don't believe it has a timer, so that helps. Floor 50 is bad. Floor 50 has a timer. For floor 40, you have options. I did it with Lilith personally, because my Lilith is one of my better built units. But Claude is always a good option. Claude is just overpowered. But when it comes to floor 50, you need Claude again. I haven't looked recently, but when I was looking before for guides to help me figure out how to do it, I noticed that Claude was the only character being used to beat it, so Claude is the answer for that one. I think I beat it with about 15 seconds to spare. I guess 10 if you count the time to grab the statue thing at the end to end the level. But yeah, it'll be a rough one, floor 50, but if you have Claude, it is doable. And also for this reason, I will just mention, for your training room, you won't need it too often for the weapon. Most of these achievements can be done without it. With the exception of the ones that use Claude, if you don't have a good weapon for him, I would say his probably need to be in that training room. And then certain other ones might be helpful, like, I'll get to it later, but for Bari, I have Baris in there. And by later, I mean now. So finally, for the general Heavenhold Tower stages, they're all based on certain units. So floor 70 is Beth's, and that one's not that bad, actually. I feel like most people should be able to do that if you're at the stage of doing seasonal achievements. It's not easy by any means, but if you do it right, you kill all the enemies on the sidelines in enough time, and then finish off the main boss. It's doable for sure. I went with a Beth, didn't level up her weapon any more than base level. Like, I didn't limit break it even once, and I beat it just fine, so that's not an issue. Bari's is the next most difficult, which is kind of funny because Bari's is floor 90 and Arena's is floor 80, but Bari's is definitely easier than Arena's. Bari's definitely took some practice. I kind of brute forced it. I think if somebody played it a little smarter than I did, they could have done a little bit better. But the way I did it was I just played enough till I got an idea of when the barrier that goes through that blocks you either for melee or ranged, you have to make sure it matches your character when you go through it to not take damage. I just basically did enough times until I could tell when each one was going to appear and where I'd have to stand approximately for it, and I beat it. If you want to get a little more technical with it, you might be able to do a little better than I did with it, but I got through it. And I did put Bari's weapon in the training room just so I could kill the boss a little bit faster, because the less time you spend in that stage, the more likely you are to survive. But all in all, it's not too terrible. But this might be one where you need the training room for the weapon. Finally, we've got Arenas. And Arenas challenge is a pain. I'm not going to lie. It did not take me 30 hours, though. Thank goodness. It probably only took me, I'd say about 4, if that. Between several days. I didn't do it in one sitting. I would try a couple times in a day, eventually give up, and then try the next day. But one thing to know with Arenas is just make progress. At the beginning, you're going to try to take as much damage out of both bosses as you can without getting hit or with minimal hits. But notice that the more times you get hit, the more damage you deal. So while it might seem like you're not making a lot of progress because their health bar is still hugely full, if you get better at not getting hit at the early stages, then when you get to the end stages where you're at, like, say, 10, 12 hits out of 15 to die, you'll be doing a lot more damage. And if you can go around with 12 hits and not get hit at all, then you'll end the game a lot quicker. So any progress you make, even early stage, means a lot in that one. And do note that you will deal like 80% of your damage after you're above 8 hits. So don't worry so much about their health level as much as how many hits can you get off without getting damaged yourself. So yeah, that one though is maybe one of the ones I would say to avoid if you can, because it is quite infuriating if you are not a patient person, but it is doable. And also with that one, I did it with Arena's weapon base level, no limit breaks or anything, and it was just fine because I had Bari's weapon just out of the training room, so I didn't have the space for it yet, so I didn't use Arena's in the training room. I just used the base level. You might also be able to try with some other weapons. I saw some people do it with Lapis's weapon. That might be an option, but I liked Arena's. It worked fine. All right, next we've got Arcade, everybody's favorite mode. I know most people will probably disagree with me, but I really thought this was not that bad. It takes some practice. It takes realizing some patterns. But the nicest thing about the arcade mode, you literally don't need any built teams at all. It's literally just a freestanding mode that's equal to everybody. So if you can get the skill, you can do it. The 100k challenge, really, I think most people can do within like a couple tries. You only have to beat the first stage and you already have more than 100k. For 300k, you have to get basically through stage 2 to get that one. And for 500k, you have to almost beat stage 3, which is the last stage. So I will admit the 500k did take me quite a few tries. But the 100 and 300 really weren't that bad. One thing also to note, you get 1 mistake allowed per stage. It resets when you get to the next level. Technically, if you make the second mistake right as you're crossing the finish line, you can trip over the finish line and still win, but I would not test with that just for fun. And finally, I want to give you guys a couple tips to help you figure it out. This is what I noticed, and if you notice these things, it actually helps you to process it better. You just got to think really quick, though. So the yellow-haired lady She does not move. She just stands right in her place. You can dodge her pretty simple. The black hat guy will move exactly one space in the direction he is facing. So let's say he's on the second row. He will be moving to the third row by the time you reach him. So as long as you go to one of the other rows, or even if you go in the same lane that he starts in, you're fine. Just realize he'll move one space. The green hat guy will move 2 spaces. So with him, the strategy I like to do is just go towards wherever he's standing. Because he moves essentially half the distance. And sometimes it's kind of hard to calculate the 2 spaces in your head. So as long as you move the direction that he's not facing, you're good to go, because he goes 2 full spaces. And then you got the blue hat guy, who is the hardest one by far. He moves continuously, and it's kind of hard to get used to his pattern, especially if you hit one of him. It's really detrimental, because if there's another one afterwards, your tempo gets kind of thrown off. And if you're walking slow, which Lana does after she gets hit the first time, then it's like he covers 3 squares at one time, and it's really hard to get through. So for him, I'd say don't focus on the fire at all when you see blue hat guy. Just go as far away from him as you can to make sure you're safe. Finally, we got the red hair lady. She's not that tricky as far as she stays in one lane, but you have to have faster reaction time because she moves towards you, so there's a faster time before she hits you. And then you have to also pay attention that she blends in with the fire, because see how the fire kind of has like a reddish hue to it? Sometimes she kind of blends in with those, and it makes it harder to see. So when you get to the stages where there's the red hair lady, just make sure you're acting quickly and you notice that she's not hiding behind those. And on one final note, the power-ups are nice, but don't die trying to get them. First off, most of them don't even give you all that many points. The only ones that do give you points are the bomb one, which kills all enemies on screen for 1,000 points each, and the I think it's like a fireball that makes you run really fast for a couple seconds, which if you hit certain characters, then you get 1,000 points as well. But really, in the big picture, it's not that much of a change towards your score. It seems like the scores you're going to either way above the amount you want or going to be pretty far below. If you're only within like 5,000, I'd be impressed. It would be sad for sure, but yeah, big picture though, those bombs and the fireballs are not going to be all that important. So if you can get them, great, go for the extra points because you want as many points as you can get, but don't die trying to get them. And then the ghost power doesn't give you any points, but it makes you invincible for a short time. Also, don't get cocky when you grab those, or else you might think it's going to last a little longer than it does and die hitting a character right after it wears off. So pay attention to that. So summed up, this mode definitely doable for anybody. You just got to practice, see the patterns, do it again and again, and you will win. All right, next we got the Mirror Rift. I think this is the last of the major categories. For this one, you're going to have high stats. If you don't have high stats, don't even bother. It's pretty tough. I thought Fire Rift was the easiest. I did it with Orca, and I actually did it in one try too. It wasn't even that difficult for whatever reason. And I've also seen that there's several options you can take for the Fire Rift. There's several good units. I know Orca's one of them. I'm trying to remember who else I saw doing it, but I've seen several other units used that were all water units, and it just seems very feasible. So I think this one's doable. This one seems to be one of the better ones for survivability. You don't take as much damage for whatever reason. So this one should be not that bad relative to the others. Dark Rift is rough, but if you got Claude, apparently it's not that bad. I did it with Arabelle because this was before I mileaged Claude's weapon, and I was able to beat it, but I barely beat it with like barely any health and with I think 1 second to spare. So probably go for Claude if you have that option, but if not, you might be able to do it with an Arabelle or somebody else. Just make sure you don't take too much damage. For me, I thought Light Rift was the hardest, so I actually chose to skip it as one of my choices. I'll see if I can beat it in the next couple weeks before the event ends, but what I've noticed though, there's no guides that use basic heroes, at least last that I checked. It seems like everybody who does it uses Kamel, which I have not invested in Kamel. So if you have Kamel pretty well built, you might actually be able to do this one without too many issues. But if you're trying to do it with just like a high DPS unit and no heal, this one it's really hard not to get hit and take a bunch of damage. It's very easy to die. And if you don't, you have like a more takey hero, then you're not going to deal enough damage to finish the challenge in time. So Light Rift is the hardest in my mind, but try for it. If you have Kamel, definitely try for it. It should probably be doable at that point if you've got a good enough account. All right, now we got co-op. There's 2 of them for this. The first one is get the A rank or higher twice. The first week it was offered, I don't know why, but it was a really easy map. Like, I'm pretty sure I got an A rank without even having to really try that hard. Unfortunately, this last week, which just ended, was quite a bit harder, even though I still got enough in ranks that I would have gotten me the achievement throughout the week. But moreover, it should be pretty doable. As long as you're not playing a hero that nobody likes, please, for the sake of all involved, do not bring defense boosting heroes or HP boosting heroes into this mode. It is very annoying when your party buff does not help the team. Just speaking for those who are in it. And please try to play with a hero who boosts the whole team. If everybody else is playing ranged, try to play ranged. If everybody else is playing melee, try to play melee. If for whatever reason you don't have what other people have, but you have like a crit hero, go for a crit hero. At least you're benefiting the rest of the team. But all in all, I think this one's doable. Most people should be able to beat it, as long as you've got a good account. Going to the get all 3 awards in co-op for the other mode. This one is pretty tough, actually. If you have friends who can play with you and try to set it up in your favor, it shouldn't actually be that tough. But if you're trying to do it by yourself, it's going to be bad. I did it with random people. It took me a lot of tries to get it. If you have Claude, it might not be actually that bad, because Claude has a really good attack and heal. So he can win the DPS award and the heal award by himself pretty consistently. But when it comes to the tanker one, you have to make sure you get hit enough to get that one. But with Claude, you might be able to do it. Other heroes are able to do it, but it is tougher. I did it with Garam. I got lucky that I was on a team that nobody was a healer, so I just stuck to heal on kill cards, and I had enough heal because it was just higher than everybody else by just the smallest amount. Garam is a good DPS unit, obviously, and then I just made sure I got hit a couple times to make sure I had the tanker award. But all in all, it's doable, but this one will take some work. And last but not least, for the actually important achievements, these are the freebies. 10,000 coffee should be pretty free. I imagine most people who are trying for it probably already have it. Maybe if you just beat World 14, you don't. And in that case, try to do some math, figure out if you need to spend coffee on stamina or not. I'd say on average, if you're checking in twice a day, you get 250 stamina offhand. And then if you want or need to spend the extra gems on some more coffee per day, then figure that out. But hopefully most of you should get this for free, the 10,000 coffee. And then getting Faint Tactics done in 9 terms, it's actually free. Like, this one's not hard at all. Look up a guide, follow the guide, you've got it done. I don't think I'm going to make a guide on this one because I don't know what I'd have to add to what's already there. But one thing I do want to just point out to you guys, make sure that you do it on an actual expedition ticket spent. Don't do it on recon, because if you do it on recon, it does not give you the achievement. I did it on recon, I didn't get it, so then I had to do it on the next day with one of my tickets. And finally, we've got the one impossible achievement, 45,000 coffee. Don't even bother. Don't even worry about it. You're not going to get this one. Theoretically, if you had infinite money, or you've been hoarding gems for months upon months, and you are just willing to blow them all on stamina, I guess you could earn this one. But yeah, that's not going to happen. Unless you are literally this figure on the right, Kamal, and you own your own mega corporation that makes tons of money, this is not feasible. This is not doable. I think the devs knew that. I don't even know why they made this one an option. Anyways, yeah, this is a skip one. All right, so just to quickly wrap up, make sure that you do what you're capable of when you aim for these achievements. I know a lot of people are like me. They want to be a completionist, and I definitely can relate to that, but you will lose your sanity if you don't have the proper account for it, and you're just trying to bash your head against a wall to earn these for 30 hours like me. It might be doable. I think I also noted one of the earlier things. You actually can override your account level by enough effort, but please value your mental sanity. Try to aim for what you're actually capable of and be honest with yourself on that. Hopefully, this guide will help you achieve a bit higher than you had before, and maybe even gives you some more motivation to try again. If so, then please let me know in the comments. And finally, if you want to tutorial on a specific challenge, then please let me know below. I am willing to make some of those. I haven't had the time as of late, but I should have some more time in the coming weeks. I might be able to do a couple of those, maybe something on Camazone. But please note, do not ask me to make one on the 3rd trial with Rare Heroes for Expedition, because I will not be spending another 30 hours draining my own sanity to try to help others do the same. that one I will not be doing. But anything else I might consider doing. All in all, I really do enjoy these seasonal achievements. As much as they are really tough, and I think they could have been a little easier than they are, it does give you a sense of accomplishment when you do finish. And I honestly do like the border of the deluxe frame. It does stand out. But yeah, this got me to put a lot more time into the game than I have in quite some time, especially with the slowdown of content release. So I do appreciate the devs putting in something like this. It definitely does give you more motivation to play, at least for a lot of people. And the rewards were pretty cool. Yeah, I do hope that everybody is able to achieve what they are capable of and are aiming for. Hopefully things work out. And yeah, let me know. All right, thanks everybody.